thanks again for joining and welcome to this Ignite webcast. My name is Josh Topal and I'm a Program Manager for Office 365. Ignite events are a series of technical workshops for IT professionals and Microsoft partners. The Ignite webcast series will address different technical subjects and scenarios that are beneficial to anyone who wants to increase their knowledge of the Office 365 suite. So today we are really happy to have Curtis Son speak to us, and he's going to talk about Office 365 deployment and click to run. So Curtis is a senior consultant at Microsoft who specializes in Office compatibility and Office deployment issues. And today's session provides a great opportunity to hear from a Microsoft employee, especially one who's so well versed in Office 365, and learn more about some of the new features and releases for the product. So today's webcast will be about an hour, and we'll leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the call to field questions from everyone. And we are recording today's session, and we'll have the slideshow presentation and the video available online on the original blog post and the Office 365 YouTube channel. So let me post those on the IM chat window so you can see. So one last thing is that if you want to ask a question, we do ask you to hold those questions till the end for Q&A, but you can go ahead and type them into the bottom left of your link window, and we'll try to get to all of them. So Curtis, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, my mic's off. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're calling from. Like Josh said, my name is Curtis, and I've been dealing with Office deployment and compatibility issues for several years now. And Click to Run is a revolutionary technology that's really going to change the way we do software deployment and delivery. And I'm really excited to talk about some of these concepts. So in general, many of the investments that we've made in the new Office are aimed at making the upgrade experience for IT pros a lot easier, right? So one of the things when we're starting to address, we want to address deployment blockers or things that help that prevent people from deploying Office or prevent people from getting ready to deploy Office. And major concerns are, making sure when I want to migrate to new versions of Office, the biggest concern is, hey, will my stuff work, right? All the stuff, all the documents, all the customizations that I've made, all my custom solutions that I've made in previous versions of Office, is it going to work in the new version, right? So what this usually causes the IT pro or IT org to spend several months scanning, inventorying, testing solutions prior to any type of pilot deployments, right? And so what ends up happening is a lot of customers feel that it might be easier to do nothing. Right? Oh, it takes so much effort to deploy. It takes so much effort to get ready. I got to find out all my Office documents, Office solutions. Wouldn't it be easier to do nothing, right? And from Microsoft's perspective, we want to disable that mindset. We want to make it easier for you, right? Our super secret agenda is to make sure that you're able to deploy Office smoothly, with less pain, and as quickly as you can without increasing your risk. And not just we want to make sure that it's easy for you to deploy. We also want to make sure that you are positioned to handle industry changes, right, and make you more agile, right? As the market changes, consumerization of IT, bring your own device. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and our customers are demanding that we provide technology that's going to enable them to work on any device, right? And that's one of our big focuses of the new Office is that we want to make sure you can use your Office anywhere. Right, home computers, mobile devices, kiosk-like machines, hotels or libraries, that kind of stuff. So the new delivery method, Click to Run, can help increase your business's agility by reducing a lot of these deployment blockers. Right, and so this new delivery method and subscription model is going to provide you the ability to install Office or run Office on any device, anywhere you go, and provide you that flexibility that as a customer you've been demanding of us for so long. So now I'm excited to start talking about some of the Click to Run changes and some basic considerations about Click to Run. It is our new state-of-the-art deployment technology. Some general considerations when you start deploying Office using Click to Run in your environment is you need to have local administrative rights. Right? And that's pretty typical with any type of software you deploy. You need to be a local administrator in order to install it. And it's not a big concern if you're using software deployment tools, ESD tools like Config Manager, BigFix, Altiris, Intune. So if you have any type of, electronic software delivery tool or distribution tool, Click to Run can easily fit into any of those tools. All you need is the ability to install Office in an elevated fashion. You can also choose a self-service model, right? So you can install Office from the portal, and that really helps facilitate installing in home environments, right? So you can install it directly from the cloud. Also, Click to Run is only available as part of our Office 365 ProPlus and I think E3 SKUs and higher. It's only available as Office 365 ProPlus, so it's our subscription license. And that means that Office is now allocated to people, right? That makes a lot of sense because basically my computer, right, this laptop that I'm talking to you all on, doesn't need Office. I need Office, right? I need Office regardless if I'm on this computer, I'm on my computer at my parents' house, or I'm on my mobile device. I need Office, not my computer. And so as a user-provisioned service, one of the big changes that you'll notice is that you must sign into Office when you launch it for the first time, right? And this is required once per device. And that's a big change from an end-user perspective from previous versions of Office. And again, it's only one time per device do you need to provide that type of sign-in. And if you have federation, if you have Active Directory federation services installed, you can federate your Active Directory environment with Office 365, and then you can achieve single sign-on. So the need for Office 365 can be entirely abstracted from your end users. And so when you're installing Office and using Office in your corporate environment, you won't need to provide those credentials. And then when you install it from the portal, say at home, you would log into the portal using your company email, for instance, and then you just click on Install. And so that's why the subscription model and using Office 365 as our activation service really facilitates the ability to use Office anywhere, and it's only available as part of Click to Run. So let's talk about a couple key changes with Click to Run and our previous installation technology, Windows Installer or MSI. Basically, I'm not sure if you know, but Office 2000. Well, let me jump. I'm jumping ahead. The current package of Office 2010 takes about 20 to 30 minutes to install, and that's due to the serial nature of Windows Installer setup programs. Basically, a Windows Installer setup program is a database transaction, which is great because it either is there or it's not, right? And that's the reason that Windows Installer was created, is because we want to make sure that we prevent any half installs or partial installs or leaving your computer in an unknown state. So once all the actions in that database transaction are committed, boom, you have a software install. But because of that, only one MSI can install at a time. And to make sure that you install Office with the latest service pack, with the latest public updates or hotfixes, you need to do that serially. And that can take about 30 minutes. The biggest advantage that you'll see with Click to Run is that when you launch it, you can be up and running and using Excel or using Word within a minute or two. Right? So typically when people ask, hey, how long does it take to install this software? The real question they're trying to get to is, well, how long until I can use it? And traditionally, the length of time it takes to install software is the same length of time it takes to be able to use it. Well, now we've changed the yardstick. Or wait, we have an international audience. We've changed the measuring stick. With Click to Run is now, Click to Run, you can be up and running, you start your install or you start your streaming, and within a minute or two you can be using Office and using Excel while the rest of it streams down in the background. Right, so because of our new streaming technology, that's part of that's a takeoff of our AppV technology. It is a lot more like video streaming than previous versions of our AppV. So you can install just what you need, or deliver stream down just what you need and start using it immediately while the rest of it streams down. Office 2000, for those of you who don't know, was the very first Windows Installer or MSI program ever created, and it was revolutionary at the time. And the goal of our Office product group for creating the Windows Installer technology was to help standardize the way software installs are performed on client machines, mainly on Windows machines, and to make sure that the industry will use Windows Installer as the de facto standard for all installs. And that was, what, 13 or so years ago since it's been released. And since then, I think about 95 or higher, 95% or more of all software setup programs today are MSI programs. Well, our Office product group is taking another big bet, right? And they're taking another step in revolutionizing, I'm sure there's a better word for that, software delivery. And right now, it is the primary installation type in the new Office. You certainly can use the traditional volume license type with Office 2013, but what we're advocating and what we're pushing and what is going to be the primary install type is going to be click to run. So MSI will be available as a volume licensed option with the new Office, but click to run is now linked to Office 365. Right? So Office 365 is the activation component. With previous versions of Office and our volume licensed media, you need to install a KMS server, or you need to provide MAC keys. Well, right now, there's no more of that with Office 365 ProPlus. You use Active Directory, Office 365 is your activation component, which is great, which that really facilitates installing Office anywhere. And again, the biggest change is, how are we provisioning software? Right? Traditionally, software is installed on a device. That doesn't make a lot of sense because, hey, my computer doesn't need Office. I do. So I want to make sure that Office is enabled wherever I go. And that's one of the biggest benefits of click to run in the new licensing model is we can install Office on up to 5 PCs or Macs and 5 mobile devices to make sure that you can use your Office anywhere. And one of the frequently asked questions I get is, okay, great, well, what if I install it either purposefully or accidentally on 6 devices? What happens? Well, the great news is that once you install it on that 6th device, you'll get an Internet Explorer window that says, okay, pick a computer that you want to deactivate Office on, which really helps if you have installed Office on, let's say, your sister's computer or a friend's computer that you only needed that one time. You don't need any more. You can now deactivate that. Right? Because Office 365 is the activation component, it's very easy to also not only activate, but also deactivate licenses, which is huge for, consumerization of IT. People bring their own device. You can install Office on all your devices that you use. But what if that person leaves the company? Well, now you're positioned to go into the Office 365 portal and deactivate that license. And you can retain that license back for the person who's left the company. Traditional MSIs had the Office, what is it called? The Office customization tool, which you could highly customize your Office installation. Well, the good news is click to run is also highly customizable. It's entirely done with group policy. So the deployment tools to do the deployment have been streamlined. Right? There's no more Office customization tool, but the same type of customizations, actually, and more, are available in group policy. And what most people expect, especially developers who develop applications that interact with other apps, is that Office installed in the MSI mode, the traditional mode, is entirely open to other applications. Right? So your add-ins, you just install an add-in, and it sees Office is there. You're able to use it. Right? So the challenge with using application virtualization, and click to run is based on AppV, or application virtualization technology, is that application virtualization is purposely isolated from other applications and isolated from the operating system to prevent any app-to-app conflicts. But that purposeful isolation prevents integration. So if you have an application that you need that programmatically creates legal documents or programmatically creates financial spreadsheets, quarterly financial statements, you need to be able to make sure that that application can interact with Office. When it's in an AppV bubble, you can't do that. Well, you can customize it, but then there's a lot of management around it. Well, with click to run, you can also have it is entirely open to any other application on the machine. So we get the advantages of the streaming technology, but it also allows the isolation model is entirely open, except for other versions of Office. Right? So you can install, and I'll get to that in a little bit as well, you can install Office click to run, the new Office, side by side or alongside previous versions of Office. And I'll dabble more in that in a few minutes. Although click to run is based on AppV technology, it does not require an AppV infrastructure or MDOP licenses. Right? So the AppV agent is baked into the product, so to speak. Right? But it is not installing the AppV agent for other AppV packages on the machine. It's actually built into Office. All right, so previous versions of AppV, what we did when we installed Office is there was a concept of Feature Block 1 and Feature Block 2. So that the idea was with the streaming, Feature Block 1, which was 10 or 15% of the application, would come down at first, and then the rest of the application would follow later. And that worked really well for small line of business applications. For larger applications, it didn't work so well, right? The net effect was you would see the application launch, but when you tried to do something, it would appear to freeze or appear to hang until the rest of it streamed down in the background. Not a great experience. So with the newer streaming, we're able to use dynamic feature prioritization to make sure that what you want to do is available on demand. So if you install Office, you will see in about a minute or two that the shortcuts are available. Then if you click on PowerPoint or Excel, you click on the Word shortcut, the Word features are streamed, are prioritized ahead of the other ones, and they're streamed on demand so you can use it immediately. And that's how we can, it's a lot more like video streaming than previous versions of AppV. So that's how you can start to use and be productive within a minute or two while the rest of it streams down in the background. And again, we already also talked about that the features of AppV that we love are the streaming. And so you have all that local application integration because we have not isolated Office from other applications. However, it is isolated enough that you can run in side-by-side mode with previous versions of Office. So let's see. All right. So the side-by-side mode really helps the compatibility and deployment process because traditionally what we see is it takes, and especially in large companies, it can take well over a year before your first seat of Office is deployed, right? And the major contributor to that is compatibility work, right? Making sure that all your stuff continues to work with the new version of Office. So the traditional approach usually starts by doing an inventory of everything you have. Let me tell you, that takes forever. And that is a biggest, it's a polite way of saying, all right, waste of time that you can do trying to find out everything that is out there. We certainly advocate more of a discovery process, and I think there's the telemetry tools, another IT Pro investment that we've made with the new Office that can certainly help in that effect. But with Click to Run, another feature that really helps the compatibility process is that because you can install in side-by-side mode, you can really accelerate your compatibility work and your deployment work, right? Because the biggest challenge to testing all of your stuff is that you got to make sure, a lot of companies think, I got to make sure the stuff works before I start to deploy. Because once I deploy, I lose my existing version. Well, with side-by-side, what you're able to do is you can really use your pilot testing as a test bed, right? So it's actually more valid to use a production pilot as a testing environment. Now, usually when I say that, I'll get a lot of eyebrow raises or furrowed brow saying, what the heck are you talking about? Because side-by-side, when you install the new Office, you retain your existing version. So it really helps you head off all of those what-if questions, right? And sometimes people can be the biggest deployment blocker, right? So what if there's a problem? What if my stuff doesn't work? What if this macro fails to work, right? And those are all valid questions that sometimes are really fear-based rather than using a fact-based approach to try and to mitigate risk. Well, now what we can do, because we're not uninstalling the old version, you can deploy your brand new environment while keeping that safety net of the previous version. Right, so you can make sure that you're testing the new Office while retaining Office 2007 or Office 2003 or Office 2010. So now you can answer those what-if questions. What if my stuff doesn't work? Great. If you find a solution that's not working, you still have Office 2010. You can open up Excel 2010 and run your custom solution. Right, so you can help proactively answer those what-if questions, and those can really streamline your deployment work. So instead of doing all your testing up front, you can deploy to, let's say, 10, 20, 50 end users and say, hey, start to identify what's really critical, start using it with the new version of Office. If you run into a problem, then you can go back to the old version. and then we can help fix those issues. You can do, if you have our Office remediation process, you can contact the vendor, talk to the internal developer, and make sure that you can fix those without a sense of a fire drill of, I got to get this fixed immediately, because you can continue to do your job by using the old version of Office on an exception basis, while still enabling you to use the new Office. And that's how we're positioning side-by-side. Side-by-side mode is not something that we're advocating as a permanent configuration. It really helps with transition, right? You keep the older version alongside with the newer version. It's a huge comfort creator, right? Because a lot of times, and what we're saying is, hey, just use the new Office. Don't worry about it. Your stuff's going to work. And I'll tell you, that is true, about 98% of the time. But it's that 2% that sometimes might get you. And that's why you can use the previous version as a fallback, as your safety net. Again, to help answer those what-if questions. But we certainly don't recommend that as a permanent configuration, mainly because it does not make sense to have two applications installed on your computer that do the exact same thing. That's going to lead to confusion, and that could lead to an extended rollout. So what we certainly recommend is it's great during pilot, but it's not recommended as something we recommend ongoing. So you can deploy it to, let's say, 50 or 100 users, have customers test their important things, and then once they're comfortable, now you can uninstall the old version. And then you can, for all of your other business users, then you can choose to deploy Office and then remove the previous version at the same time, or run in side-by-side mode for a limited time as well. And this is just a visual representation of some of the previous stuff, is that the Office is isolated enough to allow side-by-side with previous versions of Office, but it is open enough, or our @V bubble is entirely open to make sure that all other EXEs, ActiveX controls, can certainly integrate with the version of Office. So there are so many holes in our virtual bubble that it will work with all of your other applications. And what you'll notice is that if you have Office 2007 installed and you've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 add-ins that automatically launch when you open Excel, when you install the new Office and then you launch Excel 2013, you'll notice all those add-ins just start to load and start to register. And that's one of our design goals. It just works. All right, I'm going to talk about deployment first, and then I'm going to go to do some demos. I want to make sure that I switch back and forth between presentation and demo, just to make sure that there aren't any visual or meeting issues. So for deployment, the good news is deployment can be done. Although it is Office is now, we're positioning it's as a service, right? You can install Office from the portal, directly from Office 365 ProPlus, or from the Office 365 portal. What we are seeing is a lot of customers still want to deploy it, on premises. They want to use their existing software deployment tool to manage Office, and that's entirely possible, right? You can use your existing software deployment infrastructure, your existing processes, to install Click-to-Run, or Office using Click-to-Run entirely on premises. You don't need to use it from the cloud. You certainly can, but it's not a requirement. So the first step is you have to make sure your users are in the your Office 365 tenant, right? And that can be done by creating cloud IDs. That can be done by implementing DirSync to sync your Active Directory with Office 365 with your tenant. And also you can use Active Directory Federation to make sure that you're enabling single sign-on. And that's a great way to enable getting all your users in your Office 365 environment automatically. Then you would use the Office Deployment Tool. And as part of my demos, I'm going to show you the Office Deployment Tool. It's just setup.exe. It's a 1 meg program. And what the Office Deployment Tool does, it does a couple things. It will help you download the Office Click-to-Run source bits, so you can pull it down to your local file server. Or you can stage it in your local config manager distribution share, or on your gold server. You can also use the the Office Deployment Tool to kick off your setup program. The customization is done with a configuration XML file, and I'm going to show you a couple examples of this an XML file that we can use to do a download, or we can use to do an install. And the XML file is very, very, very small. There's not much configuration, and it's all entirely documented on TechNet. Then you would add the Click-to-Run packages, the source media, to your software distribution infrastructure, and you could deploy that setup.exe via Config Manager or via your software distribution tool and just point to the source files. And then the add-ins that are already installed, they're just going to work. You can install add-ins later. If you want to install Click to Run as part of a image build process, that's certainly okay. You can install the add-ins after you install Office. The self-installation is done by going to the portal. Right? You log on to the portal, and you have to be provisioned for a ProPlus license. I was working with a customer just yesterday where we couldn't find the link to where it says download software. Turns out we forgot to click on the Office ProPlus license on his ID in the cloud. So, and then you click on install software, and it's just that easy. And you can also view, hey, what other computers have I installed Office on? And when I do the demo, I'll show you an example of what my portal looks like, where we can see all the other installations of Office that I've done. So this is the way you would install Office in a self-service environment, or if you're installing Office at home, right? So remember, if you you buy Office 365 Pro Plus, you can get it in your on-prem via Config Manager or whatever software distribution tool you have, but you also can install it on up to 5 devices. So if you want to enable it at home, what you can do is you can give them instructions, hey, log on to the portal, click install software, and that's it. In a minute or two, they will be able to use Office immediately. It's great. And when you install from the portal, obviously, Office installs directly from the internet, directly from the cloud. From a deployment tool perspective, previous versions of Office, all are MSI-based. We had group policy. There was a configuration.xml to help you customize the deployment, and then also the Office customization tool, which you could further customize. You could put all your configuration settings in your deployment package. Well, with Click to Run, we've streamlined that. Right now there's only a configuration XML file to customize the deployment only, and group policy is the only vehicle to configure Office. So all of the settings that you could have done in the Office customization tool are always going to be in group policy. In fact, group policy has a superset of settings that are in the Office customization tool. So anything you wanted to do in Office customization tool, you can still do in group policy. You can configure Office. Oh, goodness. I think there's over 3,000 settings, and I will not show you all of them. That will take much too long. And then there's the Office deployment tool. All right, so that's a setup.exe. You can download it today if you go to download.microsoft.com or you search for Office deployment tool for Click to Run. You will come to our download page. You'll see 3 files: a setup.exe, a sample configuration.xml, and ulib.txt. Right. So what you need to deploy, and there are, as you can see in that little screenshot, there are only a couple of options with setup.exe. You use the Office deployment tool to download the source files. Again, it's a free tool. It enables downloading all the Click to Run source bits locally, so you can do a total on-premises deployment. You can also use it to customize which Click to Run products you want to install, right? You want to do Office Pro Plus, or you want to do, what else is there? There's Visio or Project, right? You can determine, hey, which product do you want to deploy? All 3, just 1. So you can certainly configure, hey, what product do you want to deploy? And then once you install it, you can there are 3 different update mechanisms, which I'll get to as well. Let's make sure I'm doing this right. And I will show you how we apply updates in a little bit. So right now, I think we are at demo time. Yes, thank you very much for putting up with me this long. Now it's time to demo. So I'm going to switch to my desktop. Josh, if you can just let me know when you see my screen, because I noticed there's some type of a delay sometimes. And then I will pause until we can get started, until you see my screen.
Okay.
Josh, can you see it? Whoops, I've minimized my link window in case you answer that question. All right, not yet. Thank you.
Okay, I can see it now.
Thank you so much. All right, so what I've done is I have downloaded the Office Deployment Tool in a very descriptive folder called Office Deployment Tool. And you'll see it's just the setup.exe. I have hidden the eula.txt, and I've created 3 different configuration files. Right, and I'll show you in order. Depending on my internet speed, I might not download the entire source bits because I don't want you to wait while I download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the download one first. And this is a configuration XML I just renamed to one download.xml. And what I'm doing is I'm going to use this to download the source bits into a folder called Office Source Files 3. This also tells me I'm going to download the 32-bit version of Office ProPlus Retail in English. These other attributes, or excuse me, these other elements in the XML file I've disabled because they're not necessary during download. So to facilitate a download, the setup.exe tool, the Office Deployment Tool, it's a command line tool. I would just do setup/download, and then I would point to my XML file. And now it's going to start to download the latest source bits. And when you do a download, you are always pulling down the latest bits available. Optionally, you can specify what specific version you want to pull down, but if you don't, which I haven't, you're always going to pull down the latest. So now I'm going to navigate into this deployment folder, Office Source Files 3, and we'll see the folder structure that gets created. And these are the click-to-run source bits that I can now deploy using my on-premises software distribution tool. So we'll see it creates a v32.cab file and a copy of it with a specific version. And now it is downloading the other files into this folder. And again, depending on the speed of my internet, we may not see this populate on this call, so I will show you what a fully populated one looks like. So I've downloaded one file already, and it's downloading the other. So I've got 4 files already. But the last one is pretty large, and so I will show you a finished deployment source files. So in my Office Source Files 1, I've got a specific version, and these are my Office click-to-run source files. That's it. Right? So it is this folder underneath my Office Source Files 1 folder that I would want to stage internally if I want to deploy this entirely on premises. Right? You can see the total file size is just over 900 and some megabytes. So this is what I would want to deploy. I am going to cancel this download. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to use the setup deployment or the Office Deployment Tool, right? Setup.exe, to do a install. And the way I would do that is, let me show you an XML file I've created called install.xml. And so what we can see is you can see they're very similar. And again, this is a very, very small XML file. It's very easy to read. So what I'm doing is I'm saying I am installing the 32-bit version of Office ProPlus Retail, and my source path, this is where I'm installing the files from, is my C Office Source Files 1 folder. I'm not going to use the folder I just downloaded to because it didn't finish. And also below here, I'm specifying my updates are turned on, enabled equals true, and I'm going to get updates from this specific folder. Right? And after I'm done with this demo, I'll talk about updates for a few minutes. And then there's some other properties you can set to accept the EULA and specify where I'm going to log. And to do that, setup.exe/configure. And then I would specify the name of my configuration XML, which I've specified as I'm going to install. And this is what your users would see. I believe I did a full interface. Okay, there it is. It's starting to go. And this is what the user is going to see if you decide to deploy with a full interface. things start to install. I got my very, very, very pretty splash screen. And I should have started my stopwatch, so I'll start it right now. And I need to activate Office, so I'm going to put in my credentials. Oh, and I've used this demo before, so I got to do it a little bit differently. This is what your users would see if they don't have Active Directory Federation. They would be forced to sign in once per device. This is my demo computer, so I'm not federated with my tenant. So it verifies that, yes, my user ID is provisioned to use Office ProPlus. And so when I first use Office, an internet connection is required. During deployment, I don't need it. But when I first use it, I do need to connect to the internet in order to activate Office and say, yes, I am provisioned for Office. So I'm just going to ignore all these settings and quickly go by. These settings you can certainly disable in group policy if you don't want your users to see this very handsome video or the first things first dialog. So we have a time limit, so I'm going to cancel this. And one thing you'll know, it says, okay, Office is installing in the background, right? 16% of Office has been streamed. However, I'm going to see if any shortcuts have come down. And yes, I've got Excel 2013, so I'm going to launch it. And that was 1 minute and 20 seconds since I said I should have started my stopwatch. So I'll say it's been 2 minutes. And now I can start to use Office. Right? I can do some very, very complex calculations. And Office is up and running. I can start to use Excel because once the Office bits were streaming, but then I selected Excel, and dynamic feature prioritization took over and said, let's stream down the Excel bits first, and now I can be up and running. Which is great, because usually if I had to go to a new computer using the traditional MSI install, I would have to wait 20 to 30 minutes before I could use just one Excel spreadsheet to make sure I could sum 4 plus 8 and verify that it's 12. Because obviously that's very, very important to me. So the other thing I wanted to show you, which I won't be able to do on this demo today, is that if you want to upgrade, let me open up Internet Explorer here so it's easy to see. I can also rerun the setup program to facilitate an upgrade. And you'll notice here that there is not much difference between my install XML and my upgrade XML. All I've specified that's different, well, in this case, I've specified a different source version, and I can't do the install or my upgrade because I canceled the download of these source files. And I'm specifying I want to specifically upgrade to this specific version. And so that's all I need to do. That's one way I can facilitate an upgrade is rerun setup.exe/configure and point to an XML file that says I want to install this specific version. Clients that have never received this version are going to get it download entirely. Clients that have a previous version are going to do a Delta download. They're only going to download the Deltas. So it's pretty cool. Last thing I want to show you is that even though I've got Excel installed, or Excel 2013 installed, I still have Excel 2010, right? And that's by default. Office 365 ProPlus does not uninstall previous versions of Office. So now I can make sure, hey, does my previous version work? I got numlock turned on. I can continue to use Excel, and I can open any specific document I want. Let's see, I think I have stuff on my desktop. No. Sort of some sample files. I can open, let me make sure I open a small one. No, that was the big one. Well, I can open up some specific documents using a previous version of Excel. So that's the goal. I can have Excel running at the exact same time. The previous version of Excel is working alongside the new version of Excel. Right? So you can certainly run applications in side-by-side mode. With the exception of Outlook, you can only have one version of Outlook open at the same time. All right, I'm going to go back to the presentation and show you the last few slides about updates, and then we'll start with questions. All right, so these are some things. I'm not going to read each of these, but basically, when you use the Office Deployment Tool, right, setup.exe, there are specific controls that you can use to download. The most important one is the source path attribute, and that specifies where I'm going to download to. You can download to a UNC path. You can use environment variables. You can download to an HTTP source or a drive letter. You can certainly specify, well, which edition, 32-bit or 64-bit. You can specify the language. You can pull down a specific version. And all these are documented on TechNet. All right, and we just saw how that works when I do a download using the Office Deployment Tool. And there are a similar set of controls you use to do an install. Again, the source path in this case does not specify where am I downloading from or where am I downloading to. The source path in this case is determining, hey, where am I going to install my source bits from? So you can use setup.exe and deploy that via Config Manager, for instance. If you leave your source path empty, that means I'm going to look in my current directory first. If I don't find the source files, I'm going to go out to the cloud. So what you can deploy in Config Manager or any distribution tool is just that 1 meg setup.exe program and use the cloud to download the entire source bits. Or you can specify, well, I want to deploy Office like I do any other application through my software deployment tool and include the source bits as well, and you can download it locally. So you have a lot of control over the install. You can also, like I showed you how to do an upgrade, you can also specify that I want to force a downgrade using the exact same command. Setup.exe, the command switch is /configure, and you specify what specific version I want. You also have to specify, which is the last line in the table below, the force downgrade property. That specify I specifically want to downgrade to a specific version when I know my current version is newer. And that will really facilitate backouts. Or if you were in a very risk-averse environment where you need to specify, I need to provide an install and a backout with every deployment, you can facilitate that by creating an XML file that specifically uses force downgrade. All right, let's talk about updates for a few minutes, and then we will start with questions. So the good news is updates have been changed. All of your Office builds are all comprised of a bunch of different components, and these components are is to make sure that when the client performs an update, let's say it checks the source, the cloud to say, hey, is there a new build available? It only does a delta comparison, and then it does a delta download. Right, so by default, the default option is that updates are performed automatically. It checks every day to say, hey, is there a new build? Is there a new build? Is there a new build? And when Patch Tuesday comes around, a new build will be available in the cloud. And then the client's going to say, hey, what version do I have now? What version is available in the cloud? And it's only going to download the deltas. Right, so it's very efficient. So we make sure that it does that delta comparison. Now, the benefit of having our updates, or a new build is going to be released every month, right? So we're not going to provide, let's say, a service pack or another update. Every month, every Patch Tuesday, it's going to be a brand new build. So what that means is every new install going forward that you do from the portal is always going to be the latest build. And if you have automatic updates turned on, which is the default, you're always going to be up to date. And also, the streaming that happens in the background. And the Office bits aren't updated until you close down all your applications. So the users are not impacted. So if you're leaving Outlook open, you leave your computer by locking your computer and you don't close Outlook, you don't close Excel, you're not going to get updated in the background. If after a few days, I think it's 3 days, if you don't update, if you have downloaded the source bits but haven't updated, you'll get a message, hey, updates are ready to apply. Do you want to do it? Yes or no? And then you can choose when you want to do that update. Speaking of updates, there are 3 default methods. What we just talked about, and the default option is automatically from the cloud. If you install Office at home, by default, if you install it from the portal, updates are turned on, and it's going to check every day, and there's a scheduled task that runs once per day that says check for new updates. And on Patch Tuesday, it's going to download it in the background, and when you close Office, that's when it's going to apply. If you want a little more control, what you can do is you can specify, well, I want to turn on automatic updates, but I want to do it from an internal source. Right? And that provides a little bit more control. So now you can say, okay, I don't want to update every month. Right? I update quarterly or bi-monthly. What now you can do is you can specify, I'm going to turn on automatic updates for my Office clients, go to an internal location, and then you can say, but I'm going to test these updates on my own. So you can say, I'm going to install it on 5, 10, 20 computers internally first, verify everything's okay, get that comfort level that the new build works, and then update your internal location. And then when the scheduled tasks run once a day, the clients will be upgraded. Same process. It's going to happen in the background, and it's going to update only when they close Office. So it's not going to update, they're not going to do any data loss, which is really important. The third option gives you the most control. Like I showed you before, you can rerun setup.exe, and that's going to kick off it's either going to do an install if Office isn't on the machine, or it's going to do that same check, and it's going to say, hey, is there a newer build available? You can specify what version you want to update to. And then it's going to only download the deltas. And you can specify, I'm going to get my updates from an internal location, or if you don't specify it, it's going to get it from the cloud. So you can rerun setup.exe using, let's say, your software distribution tool. Now you can throttle when your clients are getting those updates. So you have a lot of control. It's more management, but a lot more control. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. I could spend another hour or so talking about click-to-run internals or updates, but I am going to stop here and open it up for questions.
Great. Fantastic session, Curtis. It's really great stuff. And yeah, we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. We had great conversations in the instant message window, but if you could, please post your questions. Again, we don't want to have to dig through and look for the chatter earlier. And as always, you can reach out to me. I just pasted my information on the community so we don't reach your question today. Feel free to message me, and I can follow up with Curtis or anyone else afterwards. But thanks also to Daryl for helping out answering some questions, and to the others. But here we have some questions here, and I'm also going to post a couple survey questions just to get some feedback. So if you can answer those in the background, that'd be great. But here's our first question from Philip. Let's see. And then Curtis, do you want to?
Sorry, I was on mute. I was
talking
to an empty phone. So sorry about that, Philip and Josh. So today is General Availability Day for all Office 365 ProPlus. I've been in meetings all morning, so I haven't checked any announcements. But right now, as of today, the 29th, Office 365 Pro is our GA day. So it's all, I would say, go check the announcements. I don't know what they look like because I've been, unfortunately, heads down all morning. Excellent question, Lisa. Are there instructions for installing click-to-run as part of an OSC imaging task sequence? I don't think there's instructions, but if you check, the good news is that you can deploy it just like any other software package. So you would download the source bits, and I think we have one of our product managers, Jeremy Chapman, our deployment guy for Office. He has created a series of blog posts about client deployment options, and he also mentions they're not step-by-step instructions, but it says here's how you would do it if you want to make it as part of a task sequence, or if you want to make it part of just a regular software deployment. Daryl's question, will availability depend on the data center you're in? I do not know the answer to that. What is the rollout schedule geography-wide with GA? That's something that I guess Josh and I will take back. So let me take Pablo's question. Basically, how to deploy this product in a huge company. Being very Microsoft, I'm going to say, hey, just use Config Manager, piece of cake. I've been working with our Office RDP customers for the past few months to deploy. They're the ones who've had the first look at the Office 365 ProPlus. The feedback we've gotten is the deployment is the easy part. When you download the source bits and you deploy it, there's only, it's still very large, right? It's the same size as the traditional MSI version, but the deployment is a piece of cake. And that's the biggest piece of feedback I've gotten is, hey, no comment about or we have no comments or no concerns about the deployment piece. Are there tools to enable IT to see or manage software installs on users' computers? Mark, sort of. Office telemetry will help to tell. One of the things you can do with Office telemetry is you can see, well, what builds are in my environment. You can see how many computers have Office 2010 versus Office 2013. You can see what specific builds of Office. If you're only piloting certain builds, you can use telemetry to find that out. Also, Office installs, again, like any other software program, registers itself in admin root programs or programs and features, so it'll get inventory, like any software distribution tool like Config Manager will do, so you can now query, hey, who's got it? The methods to deploy it, you can deploy it manually via the portal. You can deploy it via a software distribution tool, or you can create a batch file that runs setup.exe/configure. Josh, thank you so much for Jeremy Chapman's blog posts. So the questions are coming fast, so I'm going to answer what I can. Can you see how many of the 5 are used for each user? A user can log onto the portal, and they can see where they've installed it. It will show you the computer name and the install date. So they can see, hey, what computers have I installed it upon? And Daniel, thank you for that comment about group policy startup scripts. Those are other ways you can deploy click to run. And again, from a deployment perspective, the concept is you can deploy it just like anything else, which is great. Oh, Mark, are you going back to your question? IT, yes, and Daniel just answered that question. Thank you. So, yes, an IT admin cannot see for all of the users in their tenant how many computers they have installed Office on. And one of the reasons why is that if I'm giving you, Mark, let's say I'm the administrator, you're the end user, you install Office on your home computer, it's really you don't want your administrator to manage or see, well, what personal computers have you installed it on. The licensing model, the subscription model, make sure you only have 5, so if you try and do more than 5, you have to deactivate one of them. And will an existing, Scott's question, Office 365 account with Office 2010 be updated to download 2013? Yes, it will. I do not know what the schedule is for that. And yes, Mike, you do need admin rights to install a click to run. So if you want to use the portal to install it, you have to make sure you have admin rights to it, or use a software distribution tool to run it in an elevated context. John, to answer your question, of the 5 installs, can they be mixed? Yes. It's 5 PCs or Macs and 5 mobile devices. But you can't do 7 PCs and 3 mobiles. And Mark, to your question, yes, you are not the first person to ask, can an an Office 365 administrator see other users, the installation counts for other users? We have brought that up. Some of our RDP customers have mentioned that. And right now, I don't think our plans to change that so that IT admins can see where the users. The concept is, with the subscription model, it is self-service, and it does empower the user. Do add-ins work during CTOR installation, or do you have to wait for the install to finish? Let's see. Philip, to your question, well, basically, once the dynamic feature prioritization takes over, you will launch, what I demoed, you can launch Excel, and then it's going to make sure all the bits are down there and downloaded for Excel, so that the add-ins will launch, an add-in that's configured to launch at startup will launch at startup when you install using click to run immediately. The telemetry, Mark, to your question, yes, can identify, you can install the telemetry agent on down-level Office clients, and you can then figure out, the agent is built into Office 2013 or Office 365 ProPlus. You can also separately install it on previous versions of Office. It's like a 1.5 meg MSI program, very small. In fact, that's one of my action items I'm doing today with a customer I'm working at, and I intend to have that done and deployed to hundreds of computers in a few hours. John Horner, your question. Yeah, thank you, Justin. You just answered it. Never mind. And thank you, Daniel, for your more information about telemetry. And I see some questions are being answered by others. Thank you so much. Blah, 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 blah. Is guidance how to link with standard existing desktop Pro EA? I don't think there is guidance yet about if an existing EA, how it integrates. I would recommend to go to your account representative. Fortunately, our sales teams and our account teams are very knowledgeable about how licensing works at the individual EA level.
Okay, great. Any final questions? And remember, you have my information, everyone, so go ahead and feel free to message me. And hopefully I speak on behalf of everyone, but thank you so much, Curtis. It was a fantastic presentation. And everyone on the call, be sure to look for more Ignite webcasts. We have a bunch coming up in the future for February. And you can actually see all of our Ignite upcoming schedule right here. I'm going to post that. And make sure to look at our past presentations because we have stuff on telemetry deployment. We have a lot of great stuff. So, yeah, thanks again.